He sang when they wanted him silent. He spoke when others bowed their heads. Lounès Matoub was not just a singer. He was a dissenting voice, a mirror held up to power, a cry against forgetting. Kabyle, rebel, free. This is his story. Lounès Matoub was born on January 24, 1956, in Taouret Moussa, a village clinging to the rugged, dignified Jurjura mountains of Kabylia. His father was away in exile, working in France, a common fate for many Kabyle men of his generation. So his mother, Algeria, became his entire world, his refuge, his strength, his teacher. She sang the ancient songs, told the timeless tales of Kabyle folklore, and through her he inherited the language and memory of his ancestors. This is where Lounès' voice was born, not in a conservatory or a music school, but in the heart of Amazigh oral tradition, passed down from mother to son. The melodies of his childhood were the lullabies and the morning chants, the rhythms of daily life in a land that demanded resilience. School was a place of conflict for the young Lounès. He wasn't a compliant student, he questioned everything. His rebellious spirit saw him expelled from several schools. But his real education was happening elsewhere. He devoured books, discovering Descartes, Zola, Hugo, and Baudelaire. He also read the great Algerian writers of French expression, Mouloud Mameri and Mouloud Firaoun, who wrote about his own people with a dignity that was denied to them in official discourse. Through these readings he absorbed the ideals of democracy, secularism, and universal rights, and with this new knowledge he felt an old injustice with a new sharpness. His language, Amazigh, the language of his mother and his mountains, was forbidden in his own country. The state's policy of Arabization, aimed at forging a single national identity, felt like a violent fracture within him. It was a rejection of his very being. He made a vow then, perhaps not in words, but in his soul. He would never be silent. Music became his weapon. At just 9 years old, he fashioned his first guitar out of an empty jerrycan and a piece of wood, stringing it with fishing line. He didn't learn music in a formal sense. He absorbed it, breathed it in. He listened intently at funeral vigils, learning the ancient sacred chants that connected the living to the dead. His music was never just entertainment. It was an inheritance, a sacred duty. When he was older, he joined his father in France. And it was there, in the cafes and community halls of Paris, that he began singing for the Kabyle immigrant community. He sang of exile, of nostalgia for the homeland, and of the pride of being Amazigh. Then, in 1978, came his first album. The title was a question, a challenge, a Yizem Anda Telid. O lion, where are you? It was a call to awaken, a search for the dormant courage of his people. The tone was set. Lounès Matoub was not here to sing love songs, he was here to fight. April 1980. A date etched in the memory of every Kabyle. It was the Berber Spring, the Tafsut Imazigan. The government's cancellation of a lecture on ancient Berber poetry by Mouloud Mameri at the University of Tizi Ouzou sparked massive protests. For the first time, Kabylia rose up collectively to demand recognition for its language and identity. Across the Mediterranean, at the legendary Olympia Concert Hall in Paris, Lounès Matoub walked on stage. He wasn't wearing a suit or a flashy outfit. He wore military fatigues and boots. The message was unmistakable. For him, music was combat. The stage was his front line. He instantly became the voice of the Berber cultural movement, his songs the anthems of the struggle. Yet he fiercely guarded his independence. He refused to be co-opted by any political party, believing that his loyalty was to the people alone, not to any organization. He was a free man, and his art had to remain free. October 1988. Algeria was burning. Widespread riots against poverty and political repression shook the country. In the midst of the chaos, Lounès Matoub was driving when he was stopped at a gendarme checkpoint. An officer shot him point blank. 5 bullets tore through his body. He was left for dead. He survived. What followed was an agonizing ordeal. 14 surgeries, long months of hospitalization, and the permanent companionship of crutches. The state claimed it was a tragic mistake, a stray bullet. Few believed it. but they had failed to silence him. He returned to the stage, standing. He transformed his pain, his broken body, into a powerful new album. L'ironie du sort, the irony of fate. The cover showed his own X-rays, the bullets still visible. He sang of his near death, not with self-pity, but with defiance. He had looked death in the eye, and had come back stronger, his voice sharper, his resolve harder than steel. The 1990s descended upon Algeria like a shroud. It was the Black Decade, a brutal civil war between the state and armed Islamist groups. Tens of thousands were killed. Fear became a part of daily life. In this climate of terror, many artists and intellectuals fell silent or fled. Not Matoub. He condemned the terrorism of the Islamists with the same ferocity that he condemned the corruption of the state. He refused to choose between two forms of oppression. He was a staunch secularist, and he saw religious extremism as a mortal threat to freedom. In September 1994, he was kidnapped by an armed Islamist group. For 2 weeks, he was held captive, interrogated, and sentenced to death by a makeshift tribunal. They demanded he renounce his songs and his ideals. He refused. He told them, "My life is not more valuable than the lives of others." While he was held, all of Kabylia rose up. The mountains, the villages, the cities, they all demanded his release. The pressure was immense, and his captors, perhaps surprised by the scale of the popular mobilization, let him go. He emerged from this ordeal not broken, but more determined than ever. He knew he was living on borrowed time. The threats were constant, coming from all sides. But Lounès Matoub continued. He kept singing. He sang against the powerful, against the hypocrites, against the fear that paralyzed his country. His lyrics became more direct, more incisive. In his album, Lettre ouverte au, Open Letter to, he committed the ultimate act of defiance. He took the Algerian national anthem, Kassaman, a sacred symbol of the state, and turned it into a scathing parody, denouncing the regime's failures and betrayals. It was a scandal, an act of musical rebellion that crossed every red line. He was holding up a mirror to a nation that refused to see its own reflection. He knew the price of such courage. He said it himself in interviews, in his songs. "I am a singer of danger. I know that I am going to die." He wasn't being fatalistic. He was being lucid. He had made a choice to live and speak freely, and he accepted the consequences. June 25, 1998. On a winding mountain road in Thala Baunan, not far from his home village, his car was ambushed. It was riddled with bullets. 78 impacts. Lounès Matoub was killed. His wife, Nadia, who was with him, was gravely wounded but survived. The news spread like wildfire. Kabylia, then all of Algeria and the diaspora across the world erupted in a storm of grief and rage. Riots broke out. The official investigation was rushed and pointed the finger at Islamist groups, but it convinced almost no one. Too many questions remained unanswered, too many inconsistencies were left unexplored. For many, the truth of who ordered the assassination remains blurred, lost in the shadows of a complex and violent era. But one thing is certain, you can kill a man, but you cannot kill an idea. You cannot assassinate a voice that has already become part of a people's soul. Lounès Matoub is dead. But his voice still resonates. It echoes in the mountains of the Jurjura. It lives in every new Kabyle song that dares to speak truth to power. It is present in every act of refusal against erasure and forgetting. His grave in his home village has become a site of pilgrimage, a symbol of unwavering resistance. He did not sing to please or to entertain. He sang to help his people stand tall. His life was his greatest song, a hymn to freedom, courage, and the undying love for a language and a land. The lion is gone, but his roar will never be silenced. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more content like this.